Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to be getting started in just a minute. At 12:15 Pacific time, we will get things kicking off. But right now, we just want folks to make their way in from the waiting room. So thank you for being here. We will be getting started very shortly. And super excited to be here with you all today. If we have any folks who are coming from our recent event with Susie Welch, wait, I need a plan. Welcome back. Excited to see you again. And for those who are joining us for the first time today, really excited to have you here as well. I'm going to give us 15, 20 more seconds, and then we'll kick things off with our office hours and Christine. But I think we're good. We've got a good amount of people, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share and look at you all in the eyes virtually. Hello, everybody. My name is Brinton Botkin. I use she, her pronouns, and I lead student marketing here at Handshake. I am so excited to have you here today. And we're excited to be doing our third virtual office hours with Handshake's Chief Education Strategy Officer, Christine. These events are intended to give folks a chance to ask the burning, pressing career questions and receive advice from an expert who has coached literally thousands of students in their career. So for the next 45 minutes or so, please submit your questions using the Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. We will try to get to as many as we can before we wrap up today. And anything we don't get to today, we will use to inform future events like this after the winter break, because this is kind of our last week of event programming. We know there's finals, we know there's breaks, but we will be back in the new year with lots more for you. So with that, Christine, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, give us some context on you and what you're working on at Handshake today?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me again. My name is Christine Cruzvergara. I am the Chief Education Strategy Officer here at Handshake, which means I have the honor and privilege of running the education side of our business and partnering with over 1,500 universities and colleges, many of which obviously you all go to, and really helping to support them in supporting you in your job and internship search. I've been here almost 6 years in January. And prior to that, spent the whole first decade of my career working in higher education, primarily in career services. And as Brenton said, I have advised thousands of students myself across 4 different institutions on how to get started in their career. So excited to take your questions today and just jump right into it.
Amazing. And I'm going to pull a question from our recent office hours just to give folks time to submit their questions today. But it's related to something we were just chatting about before we went live, which is if I didn't major in something directly related to the career path that I want to pursue, is there anything I can do to make myself more marketable? So do you have any advice for somebody who maybe chose a major and they're thinking about, a different on paper industry?
Yeah. So let me back up to just first say what you major in does not have to define what you choose to pursue as a career. I know a lot of people think it does. I know you're about to head into Thanksgiving and some of your parents might think it does. It does not. So you can major in English, you can major in history, you can major in finance, you can major in education, and then actually go do a whole bunch of different things that are in industries or roles that are seemingly unrelated. So the first step is to actually figure out what are the skills that you've gained from your major and from your courses that might be most aligned to the industry or role that you are interested in, right? So for example, if you are majoring in English, but you decide, wow, I actually am really interested in investment banking, or I want to go work in finance, then you know that perhaps your quantitative skills are going to be really, really important. So one of the things you can do is assess how strong are my quantitative skills and how much exposure do I actually have to that? So if you haven't already taken a stats course or a quant course or a calculus course, or you haven't taken economics, these are some of the things that you could go do both in the next semester, or you might even take courses that are tangential to your actual curriculum in order to gain some of those types of skills. Vice versa, maybe you're in a very technical major, but you decide you really want to go more into journalism or media or the creative arts, right? So you want to be able to gain some of those skills there. So identify what are the skills you have, identify what are the skills that you need for the industry or role that you're looking for. And if you don't know how to do that, you can literally do a search in Handshake for any of those job descriptions and then write down all of those skills. You can look at anywhere between like 8 to 10. You'll get a sense of what the most popular skills that those employers are looking for. And then you want to cross-reference your list to see where you match up and where you don't. And where you don't is where you could spend a little bit of time building those particular skills.
I love it. Thank you. We have gotten a lot of questions that have rolled in, and they're making me
Okay.
very excited. I would love to pivot into, okay, I want to have some real talk with you, Christine. And I know that you've heard different varieties of this question in the past, but we have a couple of folks in the questions that feel like they are just applying, and not hearing back, not making it to that first interview, not making past the initial screen. Do you have any recommendations for folks that just feel like they're hitting a wall, to, potentially change their approach and potentially, think through how they're applying and how they can stand out? I
Mhm.
also feel like I'm about to sneeze, so I'm going to go off camera for just 1 second, but I'll let you take it away.
Preemptive bless you on that. Okay, so a few things. If you were my child and I were advising you on what to do, if you feel like you're just getting rejection over rejection, or you're just getting ghosted and you're not even hearing back, or you don't know, I would have you assess a couple of things. One, how many applications are you essentially putting out? And two, are you being intentional about those applications? And three, are you actually talking to people in the field and starting to build more of your network? So let me break down each of those. The first one is, I know some students are literally just applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs. I guarantee that you're probably not actually interested in all of those jobs. And that is probably likely showing in your application materials, because you can only be so tailored to so many different things. So that kind of leads to the second piece about intentionality. Do you actually have a clearer sense of what it is you're interested in, why you're interested in it, what your skill sets are, how that lines up, so on and so forth? So let's actually like do an audit of how intentional your application process is. And then lastly, the thing to keep in mind is there are a lot of applicants and there is more competition in the workforce right now. So the reality is you do have to stand out more against more people. And one of the best ways to do that is to build your network so that somebody can actually put a name and a face, ideally, with your application. Now, you're not going to be able to do that with every single place that you apply to, but you can do that at more places if you actually put the time and effort into starting to build your network. So I would advise you to actually reach out to different alumni, peers, young professionals that are in the industries that you are interested in. You can do that via people search on Handshake. You can Google search other people and reach out and just ask for 15, 20 minutes of their time, offer to buy them coffee, whatever the case may be, quick virtual coffee chat or meeting, and get to know them, ask them questions, ask for their advice, ask them about the industry, about trends that they're following. All of those things are really helpful. The better quality questions you ask, the more you are setting yourself up to be different in the job search. You're not asking any of them for a job. You're not asking them to help you get the internship. What you are asking for is advice. And at the end, you might say something like, I am actually very interested in your company, or in this field. Do you have other people that you would suggest I talk to? Or do you have any specific advice that I should incorporate into my application for this particular job? And if you really hit it off with them and they felt like, wow, this person was really sharp, asked great questions, incorporated everything that I just said into the next set of questions that they asked, they might even offer to say, you know what, when you apply, put me down as someone that referred you, or I'll put you into the system that you're a referral, or things like that. So you want to kind of show, not tell in that way. But those are all things that you can do to help decrease the amount of ghosting you're experiencing and increase your chances. So kind of honestly, it's like going back to the basics on some of those pieces.
Thank you for that. Okay, there's another theme that I'm seeing in some of these questions that must mean that it is in the air right now. But we have somebody who's asking about preparing for video interviews, especially like higher view, where you record kind of a short video about yourself as kind of a screener before you enter into a real interview setting. Do you have any recommendations for prep on that front?
I feel for you. Those are hard. They're definitely not my favorite. I would say in some ways practice makes perfect. So practice. It's going to feel really awkward. You are probably going to feel uncomfortable. I think just leaning into that and acknowledging that that's okay. You don't have to feel comfortable. You don't have to feel like I got this and I'm going to be amazing at it. You just need to get it done. So like lower the bar of expectation around like just get it done. That's your first draft, and then watch it and decide what do you think could be better. And then you can record a second one, right? Like we all have phones. We can all just do our own little recording and then watch it and sort of see how you did and then kind of iterate on that. I would actually encourage you to share with at least one person that you feel safe doing so with and that you trust their feedback so you can actually get their perspective on, did I talk too fast? Do I have too many filler words? Am I playing with my hair constantly or making different gestures or faces that maybe I shouldn't be making, right? Sometimes it's hard to assess yourself, and having one other person to do that could be helpful. All of you go to university, and so you have a career center that can also help with that. So definitely encourage you to use that free resource as well. But just know that that is an awkward situation for us all.
Yes, I power to you all. Good luck out there. It's watching myself recorded, which I do a lot because this is what I do for a living, is rough. So I have a lot of empathy for folks. Okay, we have a great question from Samantha who says, I haven't been receiving interviews, so I'm working on creating a portfolio to showcase my skills. Aside from a marketing portfolio, are there other types of portfolios that would be valuable for business roles? So, can you talk a little bit about the different types of portfolios that you would recommend for folks who are kind of feeling like they need to demonstrate their skills a little bit better?
Mhm. And Samantha, one thing that I would actually also ask you to do is have somebody review your resume and your cover letter to just make sure that you don't have any red flags. And there's nothing in how you're presenting yourself in those documents or the formatting of those documents that may actually be hindering you from getting the interview. So just like go to your career center, have them take a look at it, or go to a trusted friend or peer or somebody who knows what they're doing, and just double check that as well. I think it's great that you're taking initiative to do a portfolio. Um, to be perfectly honest, I don't know that you always need one. I think it really depends on the role, right? So marketing's an interesting one. I think depending on what area of marketing you're going into, being able to provide a portfolio of work that you have accomplished before can be really helpful in just showcasing, look, I do know how to do demand gen, and these are some of the campaigns that I have put together before, and this is sort of the rate of return of what I've seen, or I have done social media and here are some of the different posts that I've done, and these are the amount of impressions that I was able to increase from a 3-month period or whatever the case may be. So if that is the area that you are in, 100% feel free to do that. A lot of other business areas are not necessarily, it's not common to have a portfolio per se. And so you would need to think through, when are you actually going to show the portfolio? Are you going to bring it with you when you have an interview? Are you going to have it linked on your profile on Handshake, for example? Making it available so that someone can see it if they wish to dig deeper is always useful. But know that, like, if you were to submit it with your application, I honestly, a lot of recruiters aren't going to have the time or might not necessarily take a look at it. That being said, it doesn't hurt. So if you have it, go ahead and submit it. Usually portfolios are typically reserved for more of the design and creative areas where it's a little bit more common that you're going to submit or provide a portfolio versus some of the more business functions. But actually, what I would say is more and more interviews are now including like case studies, and not necessarily case studies in the way that management consulting or consulting case studies are sort of done, but rather they're asking you to maybe talk about a previous experience or example, or have you walk them through your problem solving for a live issue that they're trying to tackle. And so you might be able to use elements of your portfolio to actually bring that to life in that way. So you might be able to like double it up.
I love that. Okay, I have a question that kind of is indicative of a couple of different ones that I've seen come through, which is
Okay.
around grades and the grades role in your job application process. So I'm going to read one of these questions verbatim, which is, I had a difficult time during my first few years of college, so I'm not graduating with a strong GPA, even though I improved greatly during my junior and senior years. I know that my skills are strong now, but my GPA might say differently. Should I directly address this in my application material? Should I hope that I can get an interview anyway? And then we have another question that's just like, do grades matter when you're interviewing? And so I guess however you want to take that one.
You know what's funny is I actually had this conversation with my 11-year-old son recently. So, okay, grades beyond your first job will literally never come up. Like nobody will ever ask you about your grades after your first job, if they do for your first job. There are some industries that are more likely to look at your GPA for that first job or for the internship. There are others that will literally never look nor ask. Okay. For the person who said that they didn't start off great, but then are really strong now, but it's definitely kind of hampered their GPA, the answer is yes, you should address it. Especially if you were going into a field or industry where they typically do look at like a GPA cutoff, right? Like consulting, banking, finance, some tech jobs, they typically do ask or will have some type of like GPA minimum. If they do, it is important that you go ahead and just address it head on. And you essentially say what you just shared with us, right? You didn't start off super strong. You figured out what the issue was. You leaned in, you solved it, you fixed it, and here you are now. Better to address it upfront than not, because likely they're going to look at it and wonder. So go ahead and do that.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, I'm seeing that we have some folks who are joining after the session that you did earlier today with Susie Welch. So Michael is asking, I enjoyed the session with Susie. Thank you. I know my values and aptitudes well, but I'm not sure where my interests lie with industry or specific companies. Do you have any guidance on where to start?
Yes. Okay. So a few things you can do. One is you could actually go into your career center and start there with the conversation. And you can literally tell them, like, set the appointment and then email them before your appointment and say, hey, I've already done a little bit of work. This is what I'm good at. These are my values, but I'm having trouble figuring out how that might match up to potential industries. Can you help me in my first appointment come up with a list of maybe like 5 to 10 industries that I could go explore and do more work on? Okay, that's one option. Second option of what you could do is you could literally put this into like a Google search, ChatGPT, any of those, and essentially ask the same question and see what responses, what suggestions you get back from some of those. And from there, you can do your research and sort of see what areas I'm just like so interested in learning more. I want to keep reading versus other areas you're like, I guess it sounds fine, but I'm like not really all that interested in continuing, right? That's another option. The third is make it even more experiential and just start reaching out to people. Reach out to alumni, reach out to other peers that have either similar aptitude or potentially similar values. If you know that values is harder unless you probably like know the person really well, but you could start with your faculty, you could start with your coach, you could start with your friends, you could start with your family, you could start with your friends' parents, right? Like any of those totally fine places to start and to just say, hey, this is what I know about myself. And I'm just curious, based on you hearing that, are there certain roles or industries or things that you think I might be interested in or I might find really fascinating? What are those? And I want to go do more research on it, right? You're not asking them to do much more than just give you ideas because you're going to do the work on that piece of it. And if you have a whole, like, let's just say you did like 10 of these conversations, or you just even had these casual conversations over like Thanksgiving break next week, you will get a list of ideas that you probably didn't think about. And you no doubt will at least hear 1 or 2 industries or roles that you've never heard of before that will give you a chance to like start, and then you can kind of spider out from there.
I love it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, we have some questions around just being a freshman, being a first year in college, and how to navigate kind of your first year to set yourself up for success for the next few years of college. Do you have any just general tips for somebody who might be in their first year and wanting to figure out the rest of their time to make the most of that time?
Yeah, try things. Like that's probably the number one the number one thing. You're a first year, you have time, and so use that time to your advantage. Take classes that you otherwise wouldn't have taken that maybe you're not sure if you're interested in or seem hard or is just like in a completely different area than what you typically gravitate towards. Take it. Take it, try it, and then actually monitor how you're feeling in that class, like class to class, week to week. Are you interested? Are you curious? Does it actually bore you to death? Like, what is it? Right. But like, try things, join different clubs, try some extracurriculars, hang out with some people that are, again, different than where you naturally gravitate towards. All of that is giving you signal that you either like or you don't like. And your job is to figure out, okay, what about it did I like or did I not like? Because that is all information that is going to help you figure out both your values, your aptitude, um, and what it is you're interested in. If you think about yourself, like when you go through the job search process, think about yourself as the product or the service that you are trying to market to someone, to an employer, right? You have to know your product or your service really, really, really well because nobody else is going to market you. Only you are going to market you. And so if you don't take that time to actually ask those types of questions, or to have a little bit of reflection, you're going to find it really difficult later to sort of pitch why somebody should take a chance on you or why you're interested in the thing that they're trying to do. So think about that in your first year as like an opportunity to try a whole bunch of things and then assess what it is you liked or didn't like about it.
Great advice. I love that. Speaking of marketing yourself, I have a kind of probably a short answer tactical question from
Mhm.
Julie, which is when should you use a 1 to 2 page resume or versus a complete historical resume? If you have a long history of experience, how do you know what to include or leave out for a shorter, more curated resume?
Yeah, more often than not, you're going to use the 1 or 2 pager, like, period. You will use that 90% of the time. Very rarely are you ever going to need to provide a longer resume. That is very dependent on field. I came out of higher education. Higher education is one of the only industries where it is common to provide maybe a 3 or 4 page resume. But even someone who has a resume that actually is probably 6, 7, 8 pages, nobody wants to read that. Like, don't submit it. It's good for you to know. I'm glad you have a document that has all the things you've ever done. But the whole point of the resume is that you're also showing your ability to curate what's the most relevant for the reader so that you're doing the work for them to connect your relevant experiences to what they're looking for. Don't make them do the work. So 1 to 2 pages is the most common. You can also think of your online profile as kind of your historical resume because that doesn't really have a page limit and that can be way more robust. So if you wanted, you could essentially make Handshake your historical resume that has more depth, more nuance, more experience. And then you can also create a shorter version that's 1 or 2 pages that you are sending in with your applications. And then quite frankly, we know employers are looking at your profile in addition. So that way they get the best of both worlds.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of computer science majors that are going through it, and I want to I want to talk about some of their questions. One is, as a computer science student, I feel like I have a broad skill set, but I don't have the kind of depth in one specific area or a curated tech stack that even internship opportunities are looking for. How can I curate my resume and approach interviews when I feel like I have more breadth than depth? And then I'll also tack on to that, which I think you can probably deftly handle both of these in one go. I failed to secure an internship my junior year, which is the standard timeline in the industry I'm pursuing, computer science. I feel like I've missed my chance entirely given how competitive the job market is right now. Are there
Mhm.
steps I can take to recover now as a senior?
Yeah. Okay. Let me actually take the last question, and then I'll try to remember the first question. The last question is, um, I would approach any of your faculty members while you are on campus. I'm going to make the assumption that it might be difficult for you to have an internship while you are in school, potentially because of location or resources or time. So if that is the case, go to your faculty members and see if you can work with them on any of their research or any of the work that they are doing. That is one way. They already know you. Hopefully you've been an active participant in their class and you've shown that you are someone who is engaged. If that is the case, go to your faculty members and see if there's anything you can do to help. It doesn't need to be paid. You could literally volunteer. It could just be for a few hours a week, but literally anything that could be really helpful in at least like shoring up some of your experience and being able to show that you worked on something else in addition to just having coursework. That is one option. Another option is to think about, one, you probably definitely need to do some networking. So make sure you're meeting people. Two, if you feel like you need to sort of beef up on any of the particular tech stack or skills, you might want to take a boot camp or take an online course or something along those lines, just to like show that you've done a little bit extra there. But those are some other options that you might be able to sort of help buffer this senior year experience. And then Brenton, your first question was—
Yes, I can reiterate it.
Okay.
As a computer science student, I feel like I have a broad skill set, but I don't have the kind of depth in one specific area or tech stack that even internship opportunities are looking for. How can I curate my resume and approach interviews when I feel like I have more breadth than depth?
Yeah. I actually think you should ask this question of people who are in your industry. So I think if you are finding a lot of job descriptions that are requiring more specificity than what you feel like you can answer, I would actually talk to some folks who are doing some interesting work in areas that you would be interested in and companies you would be interested in, and say, hey, this is something I've noticed. What would you advise me? What would get you to still look at my resume if I said blank? And actually get from the horse's mouth people that are in the industry and what they say. The reason I say this is because I think while some companies do want that specificity, I think there are also still plenty of companies who are quite open to the breadth of experience because they understand that you're still learning and you're still figuring out some of those pieces and you're going to learn some of that specificity on the job. And so even being able to identify like, oh, wow, I'm actually talking to like 3 out of the 10 people I talked to were like, actually, we'd be fine. You don't have to be more specific. We'd be okay with that, right? Like now opens your aperture up to realize, oh, there are some companies out there that would also be okay with this. I need to like do more research on some of those companies as well. I think the other way you can approach this too is like in your cover letter or in your interviews, you could actually identify and acknowledge this directly. I have a breadth of experience in these areas. I notice that you've been talking a lot about this particular tech stack. Can you talk me through X, Y, and Z, and asking really intelligent questions that also show that you do have enough like beginner knowledge to begin to sort of tackle some of the areas of specificity in their tech stack that they're looking for.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, I have one that you might need to chew on a bit.
Okay.
At what point in the job search process should I consider pivoting from pursuing a dream job in a competitive industry to a backup plan?
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's so personal. It's really, really personal. Um, I guess I would ask you to reflect on a few questions. One, um, is there a financial need component to your reality that is prompting you to even ask this question right now? So, for example, have you already been on the job market for so long that you're like, I am now eating into my savings or what little money I have, and I am not going to have the luxury soon of not having a job? If that is your reality, get a job, any job. And you can always find your way back to some of those other areas that you might be more dreaming of or wish to pursue down the road. It's never too late to pivot later. There will come with it different challenges, but the reality is right now, your biggest challenge is paying your bills. So if that is your reality and you're even asking this question, seems like maybe the time is now. Or if you're a planner, maybe the time is like in a few weeks or in a month. But I would literally, if financial constraints are part of why you're asking this question, I would maybe sit down and make sure that you are clear on how much runway you have and how comfortable you feel with that runway, right? Like some people feel comfortable living paycheck to paycheck. Some people are like, I need to at least have a few $1,000s in my bank account as like buffer, and I'm getting really close to that, right? Then you know that that's your sort of like deadline. Other people are like, I need to have like 6 months worth. And if I start dipping into that, then I'm not comfortable, right? Like, so you all have different thresholds. Whatever your threshold is, you need to work backwards from essentially that point in time. Let's assume financial constraints is not your issue. And instead, you are asking this question because you're just personally feeling really discouraged. You're not getting a lot of traction. You're not hearing back. And so now you're starting to wonder, like, am I good enough? Am I enough? Can I do this? Right? I know some of you are probably wrestling with those feelings. If that is the case, I would encourage you to find one or two people in your life that will give you real feedback. And I want you to sit down with them and I want you to tell them where you are in this process. And I want you to ask them a very honest question based on what I'm trying to pursue and what I'm trying to go into. This is my skill set. This is what I'm good at, or this is what you know me to be good at. Do you think I actually have a shot at this? And get a really honest take on that, because some people will tell you, look, you do have a shot, but you're going to have a better shot if you actually like maybe take a couple steps back and do X first and then build up to that, versus some might just say like, look, you're just feeling discouraged. Like you have all the makings of the things that you need. Just like stick with it and let me be the person that's going to help you stay as optimistic as possible. Because I know this sounds really hokey, but once you start like losing your optimism and you start feeling desperate around a job, like people can smell the desperation, and nobody wants to hire someone who's desperate, right? It's like a relationship. No one wants to be with like the desperate person. So just make sure you have enough of a support network around you that you, one, are getting honest feedback, and two, you're able to ascertain like, am I just feeling down on myself because it's like legit and I should actually pivot, or I'm feeling down on myself because I'm just like not used to this because I've generally succeeded at most of the things I've done and this doesn't feel good right now. Um, and I think that will help you start to figure out when is the right time.
Thank you, Christine. I promise we will pivot to a more optimistic topic in just a little bit. But speaking of feeling down on yourself, we have a question that I think is really interesting. If you get terminated during a probationary period, so for example, this person, 9 months in, management cut their new hires team in half. In the field that you're interested in, how can you recover and leverage newly gained experience in a more positive light, given you don't have much experience in a field and first professional experience and knowledge is still relevant? So how do you market yourself and your experience after a termination?
Yeah. Okay. So first, just know that termination is actually very normal. It is something that happens to a lot of people, really skilled, intelligent, wonderful people that for many of you would never even guess have been terminated before. Like it does happen. And in some fields, some areas, it happens even more. Like if you're in sales, termination can actually happen like quite frequently, and it's a very normal thing. So first, I just want you to like normalize that it's okay if it's happened, and it's not the end of the world. You're going to figure it out. You're going to pick yourself up, and one day you will be talking about how this was like a great learning experience. Maybe not great, but it was a learning experience one way or another. So I think that's like the first thing. The second thing is think about the relationships that you have actually built during those 9 months. Think about the people, think about the networks that you've started to build, and reach out to some of those folks to let them know, hey, I'm open to something new. I'm starting to look. If you see anything in X, Y, or Z area, please send them my way or let me know. And I would love to connect with them or apply. But you should start putting your feelers out for what you're interested in. Don't just say, hey, I'm on the market. I need a new job. I'm open to anything. That's not helpful for people. Be more specific. So when you do reach out to people, make sure you're actually saying like, hey, I'm really interested in having this type of role in a tech company, or I'm really interested in staying in this location, working for a mid-sized to large organization, right? Like just be a little bit more specific about what it is you're looking for. That actually helps people to help you faster. Um, the other thing I would encourage you to do is think about your national association. So for some of you, actually all of you, whatever role or industry you want to go into, I guarantee you there's a national association for that role or function. Join it. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to meet people. You might be able to go to a conference, and it allows you again to just like expand your aperture of what possible opportunities are available to you. And of course, you can use tools like Handshake too to actually do a search and continue seeing what might be available. We're finding quite a few alumni are coming back for their second or third jobs and looking at some of the mid-level positions that have started to pop up on the platform as well. So I would do all of those things.
Amazing. Okay. I have a fun one, which is how do you handle having a bad interviewer? If you're in an interview and somebody's just like, you're not vibing very well with them, but you really want that job, do you have any recommendations for folks in that situation?
Oh gosh, this one's so hard. This one's also hard because it is kind of very individualistic in terms of the vibe, if you will. I think the most important thing is that you're yourself. I
Hmm.
want everyone, my like dream in terms of interviews is for everyone to be able to walk out of an interview and go, I gave it my all and I was totally myself. And if they liked it, fantastic. And if they didn't, okay, it probably wouldn't have been a good fit for me anyway. And so I think first and foremost, focus on what you can control, which is yourself. You
Hmm.
control how you show up. You control how you speak. You control how you look. You control all of those pieces. So focus on like who is authentically you and how do you want to show up and what your narrative is. That is within your locus of control. So just make sure to like nail that piece of it. Um, the second part would be try and read the environment and what's going on around you. So if Brenton and I were interviewing and I felt like, wow, this is really awkward. She's like not asking me a lot of questions, or she seems to like not ever smile at me, or I know it's like so unlike her. And so right, like I might just sort of like, okay, no problem, I'm going to be me and I'm going to answer the question, and I might ask her back a question to see if it helps to like, maybe she wants a little bit more of a conversation. I'll see if that like helps to loosen things up or open her up a little bit. Okay, if that's not really working, maybe she's a more serious person, maybe I'll ask her some questions that allow her to tell me about her experience or what's important to her. So I would read the room essentially and sort of see what you might be able to do with that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a famously serious and unsmiley person. So I was a really good example there, Christine. Thank you so much. Okay, we have several versions of a topic that I think you can speak to at length, which is,
Okay.
I'm not going to read one specific question because it's, there's so many versions of it, but if you don't have work experience and you want to try to break into the industry, you want to break into the job search, how do you market yourself and make yourself somebody who can stand out even among folks that potentially do have professional experience?
Hmm. Couple of things, and some of it you're going to feel like is repeat. It is repeat because it is real and it works. So I'm going to repeat some of it. One is you have to network. You have to meet people. So use the people search on Handshake. Make sure you're reaching out to folks. Actually take the time to do it. I know it is time consuming. And I know some of you are like, oh, this is so much work. I don't want to have to do it. It's work. It's work to get work. Sorry. That's just what it is. So do it. Meet people, do the informational interviews. It's not enough to just meet like 5 people and be like, the 5 people didn't help me. You have to continuously meet people. It is an ongoing process. So identify folks, and every week, like set a goal for yourself for how many people you're going to reach out to try and set up meetings. You're not going to hear back from every single person. So you're going to need more people than the actual number that you will reach out to or that you will actually meet with. So definitely like take the time now to just do it. It's really, really important to make sure that you invest in yourself and in your relationships and your network. So do that. That's one. The other thing is think about your coursework and your extracurriculars as another way to supplement your experience. Even if you don't have direct work experience or direct internship experience, some of your coursework may actually be directly related. So make sure you are actually taking advantage of those things and you're highlighting that. Those things can go under relevant experience on a resume. Those things can 100% be on your Handshake profile. You should be highlighting those things because you're learning from it, you're gaining skills from it, and you want to be able to talk about it. So those are other ways that you can definitely get some of those experiences. You can also, I would recommend, look at shorter term projects that you might also be able to do, or at the very least, if you're maybe an underclassman, first, second, third year, you might even think about doing like an externship, which is a job shadow with some employers around just like getting exposure and meeting some people, because through that conversation, that might actually lead to something as well. And then lastly, I will actually use the bit that Brenton told me at the very beginning of our session, right before we went on, which is your career center or your school is offering so many different programs, workshops, alumni panels, career fairs, whatever. They're offering a ton of things. I know because they're literally all on Handshake, right? So thousands of them are being offered. Attend them. Actually go. I know some of you RSVP and then you don't show up. You showed up for this one. Show up for those things too. And the reason I say that is Brenton has been hosting this whole like speaker series. She's doing 3 events a week. She's hearing from all these different people across all these different industries, some of which she's not interested in, she'll never work in. But what is important is that she is getting some really amazing knowledge and she's hearing patterns in what everybody is saying. This is what you have to do. This is what helps to stand out. This is what's going to help you. The more you hear it over and over and over again, the more it's going to help you actually like distill down, okay, I guess these are the things that I really need to do regardless of what industry I want to go into. So it's just good knowledge, and you can take advantage of any and all of those things right away.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, I know we're coming up on time. We have about 5 more minutes, so I'm going to try and get a couple of quick questions in for you. We have a question from Abdullah, which is it better to spend time on cover letters that are tailored toward a specific role, or is submitting a generic cover letter related to a job good enough? Because I find myself spending a lot of time creating tailored cover letters.
A tailored cover letter, if you're going to submit a cover letter, a tailored cover letter is better.
Okay.
That's always going to help you stand out more. I can't tell you how many recruiters are like, oh yeah, could tell that was a generic cover letter, right? Or that wasn't really written for us. And so I know it's a lot of time, but you are more likely to have luck if you do a tailored cover letter.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, I have a question from Jacob that I answered part of in the chat, but I want to kind of serve the first part to you. What are some ways that you'd recommend in order to create a better strategy for looking for and applying for jobs and internships that you're interested in? I've applied for countless jobs and I've always felt drained after applying because I never really felt that they aligned with me. And I've also been ghosted a lot. So can you talk a little bit about maybe a job search strategy? And I feel like perhaps that's a good note for us to end on.
Sure. Brenton, are you thinking about my 4 steps?
I sure am, because I know you're full of knowledge, and I feel like it's such an actionable piece of advice that's
Sure.
relevant to so many people here.
Sure. Okay. When you think about your job search or your internship search, there are essentially 4 steps, and everything that anyone has ever told you can be bucketed into one of those 4 steps just to make this easy for you to remember. The first one is essentially your documents, like who you are, your resume, your cover letter, your profile. Okay. The second is research. You want to do micro and macro research. We'll talk about that in a second. The third step is networking. We've already talked about that plenty. We will revisit it in a second. Then the fourth step is searching and applying. Okay. The reason I lay this out in 4 steps is because the biggest mistake that people make is they do step 1 and then they skip to step 4. So they have their resume, their cover letter, their profile, and then they apply. And then they wonder, why am I not hearing back from anyone, right? The answer is you're not doing enough of 2 and 3. So back it up and make sure you do more of 2 and 3. When I say micro and macro research, what I mean by that is you don't need to, it's not good enough essentially to just do research on your job or the company that you're applying to. You also need to do macro research on the industry, the job function, and the major trends and issues that that industry is facing. Essentially, you want to be able to talk shop. You want to feel comfortable going into like a networking event or a dinner party with a bunch of people that work in that area and know that you could somewhat hold your own in that conversation because you've done enough reading to know what some of those issues or trends are. Okay, so that's research. Networking, again, you're finding people that are in that field or area and you're asking them of advice for you, advice for how to break in, culture about their company, the experiences they've had. And you are also asking them, what trends do you follow? What are you dealing with right now? Who do you read or what podcasts do you listen to that's helping you stay on top of things, right? So the networking and the research actually feed each other. You will ask better questions with the more research you do, which will entail make people feel like you are a sharper candidate. And then you're going to use that information to go do more research and the cycle continues. If you do enough of that, and in your conversations, you're also asking, when's the best time to apply? How should I apply? What are the best ways to get noticed? What site should I be going to, other than Handshake, of course, right? Things like that. You're going to start to hear some really good tailored information for your industry or job role function. And that's going to help you with your searching, which will make it easier.
Wow, truly a star. You wrapped right on time, Christine. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom. I know we did not get to every question. For everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for your thoughtful questions. I wish we had all the time in the world to get to them. Please be sure to fill out our feedback survey that's in the chat so that we know what you're interested in hearing more of. And in the meantime, be sure to check out our events page to see the last few events that we have as Handshake coming up this year and to see events for you from your career center as well, like the ones Christine mentioned. And with that, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your week and appreciate you spending this Tuesday with us.
Thank you all so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.